Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Flux Dev Meeting, September 22nd. We're filling out the agenda, and if anyone has any agenda items, please get them on the list, and we'll get started. We can start with the GA Dev Focus Board. Does anyone have anything they'd like to talk about from here? We have, since the last dev meeting column, we can start with that.
Yeah, we merged the cosign verification for both static keys and keyless verification. There's a follow-up for me. I have to update the RFC and add the keyless spec. We went with a very simple design for this. If you don't specify a secret reference, then Flux will, but you do enable verification and you set the provider to cosign. We try to do a keyless verification, and this is experimental with cosign, is experimental in Flux because, well, we can go with something else here, and there are some limitations to the keyless verification. For example, it only works for, of course, public images. We use the public instance of record, which is the cosign ledger, where all the signatures, timestamps are, and so on. But since a lot of open source projects have adopted keyless signing, including Flux, I think this will be beneficial for, you install something on your cluster which is maintained by an open source community. You may want to make sure the thing that you install is actually signed by their owners, and you can verify it and so on, right? So it's quite an important feature, even if it's experimental. We'll revisit that once cosign moves the keyless signing and verification out of experimental phase. But for, let's say, applications, if your own application, if you bundle them with Flux, the CLI, you publish the application manifest to your own container registry, then you should sign them using your own private keys and give Flux the public keys to verify that whatever is deploying that application is actually, produced by someone from your team. And that's what the next Flux version will support.
Excellent. We have a few more items here. One is a bug, and another is related to the fuzzers. I'm not sure if anyone wants to talk about either of those.
No, they are covered in the latest Flux release notes.
Okay, great. We can move on to the next item then. GA focus PRs requiring reviews. If there are any, we could list them here.
Yeah, Max created a pull request that I have approved. I don't know if someone else wants to look at it. So this is about connecting to Helm HTTP repos, which are self-hosted with self-signed certs. And we allow people to specify the CA bundle. But the thing is, if your chart is an umbrella chart and it has dependencies on other charts which are not hosted on the same repo, then everything falls apart because we only take one CA bundle into consideration, and that's the one you provided. So for example, Flux will not be able to connect to GitHub pages, or I don't know, whatever other HTTPS repository is listed there. So what Max did was, instead of taking into consideration only the custom CA bundle, now we append that bundle to the root CAs from Alpine. And this allows you to, have chart dependencies to other Helm repositories. And if those repos are don't use self-signed certificates, they use proper certs, then everything will work fine. That's something that's probably coming in the next Flux release. I don't know of other GA focus PRs right now.
Okay. Unless there's anything from anyone else on this item, we can move to the next one. That is, how are we to support verification for Helm charts? Which is a related topic to what we were just talking about.
Yeah, that's a question. Well, because now this PR has been merged, and there was previous work from Sanskar in order to do verification with provenance files, but I think that is abandoned. So the question is, are we going to move forward with just cosign, or do we want to have both options?
Let's do cosign first. And
I can't say that I've ever seen a Helm chart that provided the verification with provenance files. So
The whole workflow, today people can sign, easily use the Helm CLI. You can do Helm package that's sign. And if you would provide the way to verify this, you could do this, but they cannot do the Helm package that's signed with cosign. So it means if you support that, they have to use the cosign CLI in addition to the Helm CLI, which is fine, I guess. It's just so we are on the same ground.
Yeah, people do use provenance files, but you're right. It's a lot. It's not very widely used, except for internal projects at companies, I think. Well, I'll say this, when giving Helm talks, like at KubeCon, like there's been a number of times where I've like asked the whole audience, like, how many people use Helm's built-in signing and verification? And like, there's like, like one or two hands raised in like a sea of a few hundred people. So that might be just like, not a correct slice of everyone, but it does give some idea. Yeah.
well, no CNCF project or no project in the CNCF landscape that publishes charts for installing their things sign those charts with PGP. Why? Because it's PGP.
Right.
Would you give your private PGP key to your CI tool to sign it? Yeah, it's quite a challenge. And
Yeah.
yeah, so Helm native signing kind of follows Git signing, where you have to set up OpenPGP, the Web of Trust, and all that. Yeah, thing.
Yeah,
I'm for
definitely-
I'm for adding the cosign verification as it is to Helm charts, and of course that will work only for charts from OCI. But given the fact that we want to encourage our users to move away from Helm HTTP repos and so on, I think it makes a lot of sense to just support cosign across the board. And I'm not sure, Sule, if you looked at that function that we've added, if it can be reused as it is or not.
I think, I think it's pretty straightforward to use it.
Yeah, if we can't just use it as it is in the Helm chart reconciler, then we need to do some small refactoring around it.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that complicated. The function is quite isolated. It has something which is kind of awkward because it writes a log when it tries to do keyless. So it receives a context and it gets the controller logger from there. Of course, it will work for the Helm chart reconciler because it's our code, it's the same stuff. So I would say let's create an issue for adding cosign. Do you want to take this on? Do you have time?
I can do it, but I think there are other people that wanted. Maybe Max wanted. Well, I will see with him. We can do this together. The only concern is regarding the API, because I guess it won't be on the Helm charts, but on the Helm release, because today we don't. People don't use Helm charts to declare Helm releases. So are we going to add the verify on the Helm release? I guess so. This is maybe.
No, it will be on the Helm. The Helm repository will have the secret.
No, it can't be on the Helm repository.
No.
Because now the Helm repository is like a registry.
Helm repository is Docker Hub. Are you supposed to use the same key for all the containers in Docker Hub?
So it's either Helm release or Helm chart, and now people only use the Helm release actually. So I guess it has to be on Helm release.
No, of course not. It has to be on the Helm chart.
Yeah, but
Helm controller does not reconcile Helm charts.
I understand that, but people today, our users declare Helm releases, and they expect the Helm release, the Helm controller to create Helm charts for them. They don't declare Helm charts. So if you tell them you have to declare a Helm chart, they still cannot reference this from the Helm release. So they will have a verified chart, but that won't be the same chart that is used when they will be reconciling the Helm release as of today.
Yeah, of course. So we have to implement it in source controller, add it to the Helm chart API, then we update Helm controller, include that field.
On the API, okay.
Yeah. I mean, how we did with all the Helm charts fields until now, it's the same. From a Helm controller point of view, is you add that field, you copy that field in there, and if people set it, then the Helm chart will be created with verify provider, secret ref, and all the things. But it's source controller who does everything, right? Source controller pulls chart, verifies
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think Hide is so Hide is refactoring Helm controller, and will probably have an option to reference Helm charts in the future, so people can reuse a Helm chart in multiple Helm releases and so on. But I don't think it's relevant to this discussion. We implement it in source control, and before we do the release, we add that field to Helm controller, so it's able to template the chart from there.
Before moving on from that topic, if we were going to, regarding provenance file support, is it fair to say that, you know, we're prioritizing OCI because Cosine really solves a lot of these problems for us, and that if there's enough end user demand for provenance files, then we can revisit that?
Sure.
Okay,
So
yeah.
I don't know, since we started with Helm, I don't know, 4 years ago, we had 1 or 2 people asking about provenience
Right.
file.
Right.
So,
Oh, no, I don't think there's going to be an uprising.
yeah.
But the
Well,
reason I'm saying it
now-
like that is more just a way to frame it, I suppose, to frame a response to people who are asking, because Helm does still support provenance files. You know, it's just that it's a fairly underused thing. So I was just thinking, instead of us simply saying no, we don't, no, we won't. It's more like, well, if there's enough demand, we can then look at it.
Sure. What I really hope will happen in the future is that, you know, open source projects will publish their charts to container registries like GitHub and Docker Hub, and will sign those charts using Cosine keyless. So no one has to deal with managing private keys, rotating them, and so on.
Yeah.
Then they will enable it in Flux. So I don't know, when Flux deploys the Prometheus operator chart with all the things in there, it will also verify, hey, is this chart actually made by the Prometheus community? Yes, it is, then deployed.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you know, just for transparency here, there's been some discussion. Stefan had mentioned some good examples of this for everyone else, I guess. Mentioned some good examples of Helm HTTP repos that would have a really good impact on the entire Helm community to move to OCI. And I've, you know, met with several of them now. There are plans for Bitnami to do this. This is great. There's yeah. The one thing that there are other tools coming out, out that are gaining some traction, like Acorn and some others, you know, that do bundling. And that's actually what I'm going to save it for the topic when we get to this, but that's what my topic is about below, about trying to take the temperature of Flux folks about whether a package, you know, a bigger grouping packaging feature for OCI would be helpful. Because if it's done upstream in Helm, that could just be simply implemented somehow in Flux. But anyway, if that's done, they will, you know, if there's some kind of solution there, that would really, really help them for like air gap and so on. But they're already planning on it, and we're going to work together on it. And then the second is the Prometheus community charts. I'm one of the 3 admins on that, and there's a lot of maintainers. So the community discussion's already underway. and there's no objection to this. So yeah, so thanks for that, Stefan. I actually looked at your some of your GitHub actions that you mentioned to check out some of the cool ways that you had steps for using cosigned to sign them and then push to OCI. So I think a follow-up step would be we may want to add that to the Helm chart releaser project. So that could just simply be, oh, instead of having to manage this, we just call an action and pass the configs and we're done. Something like that.
Yeah, I think so. Cosign has a GitHub action on its own. I don't think Helm should download its own cosign CLI and set up cosign on the GitHub runners and everything. You should be using, like we are using in Flux, the cosign action.
Yeah.
The only thing that you have to do is from the GitHub action that produces the OCI artifact and pushes that artifact to the container registry. What that has to do is output the URL. So then you pass the URL to cosign. Cosign will sign it, right?
Great. Okay, that's great. Didn't even think.
I'll try to do this in PodInfo for the PodInfo Helm chart, and I will link to you and see how it looks. But it's like using cosign action. It's one line of YAML in the GitHub workflow, then run cosign sign with nothing else, just the URL. And if you tell GitHub and cosign will basically authenticate with the GitHub runner identity with its OEDC and will do the keyless signing. So it's like 2 lines of YAML and you have everything signed. I don't think you need to embed that in the Helm action. It's
that
really,
sounds
really
great.
easy and straightforward. But I will test it out and let you know if there are any issues, but I guess not.
Great. Thanks. That's awesome. Oh, so are we on to the next topic of about packaging? Or are we still have more to talk about with cosign? Sort of flows right in to this one a little bit. Okay, we can always circle back if we have other cosign stuff to bring up. But my question that I wanted to ask you, Stefan, but also other Flux devs here, is do you think it would be helpful to have a feature in Helm's upstream in Helm for Helm's OCI support to support packaging, say charts and their dependencies in OCI together? Right now, the solution is for chart maintainers to move those dependent charts to OCI as well. Or another feature that I'm thinking about pretty seriously is adding another item to the dependency array within the chart.yaml to be able to specify not only the current URL, the HTTP URL, but also specify an optional OCI path. That way, there could be a flag that says something like, use only OCI when packaging for the CLI, I mean. And the SDK would of course have this too. So it would then, if you say that's true, then it wouldn't just pick the default URL that people are still using, but it would allow chart maintainers to transition to OCI while still supporting all the users that are, using those dependencies in HTTP.
So
yeah,
let's take the Cube Prometheus chat.
Yeah.
That one has 20 something dependencies, right? Cube state metric, Grafana, all of that, right? So what happens when you do Helm package for the umbrella chart? Does it pull all the dependencies and brings them all together in that tar, and then you push the tar with everything to the container registry, or it doesn't do anything with the dependencies? They are there in the Helm chart, in the chart.yaml, and then when you do Helm install from OCI, then Helm will download the umbrella chart from the registry, but then all the others will be downloaded from the HTTP repo. That's
Yeah, I think that's the way. I was considering, oh, package dependencies too, but the reason that I think that's not a good idea is because you can give semver constraint logic for what you want for the dependencies, and we could package those things, but then like the very next day, like a newer version comes out that still fits.
And you have to push the
yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
damn.
So I think the better thing is to do the second part that you mentioned, which is well, that's actually how it works right now, right? Is that like the chart without its dependencies, it just has its dependencies declared in the chart.yaml file. Those could be OCI dependencies if chart repo maintainers decide, all right, we're going to move everything to OCI. We're not going to support HTTP anymore. Then it will just work. It will go and fetch those other things from OCI and so on. It won't bundle them all together to start, but it will do the thing, right? During Helm package and Flux will do that too. Like I believe right now. Yeah. So, but chart maintainers aren't going to just, for the most part, just switch and just drop HTTP support because like so many people rely on it. So I think for the dependencies, what I want to do is give in the array in chart.yaml for the dependencies array, I want to give an alternate or let's say an OCI key so that there can be a URL and there can also be an OCI URL or something like that, so that people can support both for a time and then over time decide if they want to drop HTTP or just wait till say Helm 4 possibly or something like that.
Just so you know, we support this in Flux. If you have a Humble chart today in Flux, you can post HTTP on OCI for the dependencies.
Yeah, of course. Helm also supports it. By the idea, what Scott is trying to say is that if you can't offer both of them at the same time. So it's impossible to switch the Kube Prometheus stack chart to OCI. We can push that chart to the container registry, but it will depend on all the 20-something charts will still come from HTTP. You cannot, if you want to switch, you have to switch everything, right? So meanwhile, what I think we should do, Scott, because adding the alternative URL there and changing chart.yaml schema and all of that will take, I don't know, 1 year, 2.
I don't think it'll take that long. No. If we actually work on it, which I'm definitely happy to sponsor that or like push for that and work on it. I think it's a very valid use case, and we can't get it done before KubeCon, but we can, of course, but it won't take that long.
My proposal would be, so let's say right now, if you want to push the Kube Prometheus stack to OCI, you have to do a replacement in the chart YAML and set OCI URLs there. Yeah. So when you push all the dependencies to GitHub Container Registry, then when you push the umbrella chart, you have to do a separate Helm build and a separate Helm push than the one from HTTP, and you replace the URL for everything. Yeah. So when I'm pulling the Kube Prometheus stack from the container registry, it will only contain dependencies to the same container registry. But if I'm pulling it from the HTTP repo, it will still have dependencies on that HTTP repo. So they don't mix together, and people who rely on it will not get into trouble, because what I expect to happen with OCI is people will not allow, for example, the thing that pulls the dependencies to look elsewhere than just the container registry. Let's say only GitHub container registry, but the GitHub container registry has a different URL from the GitHub pages where all the other dependencies. So
Yeah.
it
So,
will.
so are you thinking? So with that, are you thinking that for that this could be implemented in Flux rather than, like just rather than waiting for that to be upstreamed somehow in Helm, so that we can then maybe perhaps when users specify a Helm repository, or sorry, a Helm release object, a Flux Helm release object, they could then have a way to specify that you are all there for dependencies of that chart to make that swap? Or what were you thinking?
No, at build time, you will make the swap.
Oh, like with CI, or like say with customized layers or something like that.
It's a matter of patching the dependency array and changing the repository from HTTPS to OCI.
That's interesting. So basically a workaround at build time.
Until you have the both things in there, yeah.
Yeah. Got it. That's a good idea. Okay. So in short, am I hearing that would be so adding both of those would be valuable for future?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think so.
Unless people want to do this swap on build.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
But on the other hand, what's the use case of supporting both? What's the use case of having the umbrella chart in the OCI repo and dependencies on HTTP repos?
I think the use case is just transition, because right now, for example, take the Prometheus community charts. No one is using them with OCI right now unless they're building and pushing them themselves and patching all that stuff and doing it all themselves. No one's doing it because it's not available. But
yes,
right. Understood. But it's more of a transition thing, because in order to aid HTTP repos to move to OCI over time, so that there can be like adopters, they can give a window of time and say, we're going to give 6 months, of HTTP support still. And then or maybe we'll continue HTTP support till Helm 4, but we'll at the very least, they could decide, right? They could say at the very least, we'll then move our main dependencies, just to OCI, or something.
No, but hear me out. So if the publishing process of a Helm chart allows you to swap the dependencies, if you publish to OCI, set dependencies to OCI. If you publish to HTTPS, set dependency to HTTPS. And that's part of the build process. Now, when you refer to the chart, the umbrella chart in OCI, all these dependencies will come from OCI. If you refer it to HTTP, all dependencies will come from HTTP without changing anything in the Helm API itself. It's just when you build it.
I get it. I thought you meant
it's not a workaround. It's like a convention, right?
I thought you meant at build time for the end user, but I think I understand now. You're talking about build time for the chart maintainers.
Yes. Right. So you maintain HTTPS and OCI in parallel for as long as you want, but you give the confidence to people, hey, if I'm switching to OCI, don't serve me dependencies for HTTPS, serve the dependencies from OCI, because that's what I want to use, not a mix of both. And to ensure that at the build time, you just replace HTTPS with OCI and you set there the right URL for that.
That would work for a lot of things. It wouldn't work for everything, because a lot of charts have dependencies on other
external dependencies. Ones that you don't control, and it's not up to you whether they switch or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you couldn't necessarily just do a full-on swap of all HTTP to OCI there and dependencies. It would have to be
Yeah,
like,
you'll keep HTTPS in there for as long as no other option exists. Once your upstream dependency switch to OCI, then you also switch to OCI during the build process.
got it. So we could just be more targeted with the build. Okay, yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. That actually does sound like a lot easier to start.
And it will be nice for if you want to improve for the chart maintainers, their life is like the Helm build should take the new array of OCI things,
Yeah,
or
definitely.
allow you to rewrite the dependency
yeah.
YAML somehow. I don't know, through a patch or I don't know, some other config file or whatever.
Yeah, something similar to the post renderer or something, but for the Helm or for the chart.yaml. Okay.
Yeah, basically you have to patch the dependency array and substitute the repository entries with new URLs.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
you leave all things there. The version is the same, everything, the description, like those are identical, right?
Yep. I think that's a really good suggestion. Thank you for that feedback. So it sounds like there's nothing really to do for at least from Helm, Flux's point of view for this. It's just that's a good path to help chart repos move to OCI. Okay, yeah, we'll work on that together. I'll reach out to you too for yeah, what you said you were going to work on with
Yep.
Yeah. That's it for me.
Okay, I think we have one more from Sanskar then.
Yeah. Do we still have time?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so there are like two PRs open, one for source controller and one for image automation controller. I'll link them as well later. So I have been testing the new Git packages in the source controller and the image automation controller for the last 2 weeks. So like I have Git repositories using go git, libgit2, like basically every permutation and combination of what we support over AWS, Azure, GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket on-prem, and it's all working fine. I'll post some metrics on the PR as well after this meeting. Everything is working fine. Source controller hasn't crashed once, which is great. Image automation controller kept crashing every 12 to 18 hours, but then it was never like a fatal crash. It was never like, it just kept on crashing. It crashed, it recovered, went on for like 12, 18 hours, then it crashed again. So right now, the Git2Go version we were using, that Git2Go version uses libgit2 1.3, which is 2 minors behind the current libgit2 version. The current libgit2 version is, the latest one is 1.5. So I forked Git2Go and I updated it to, like I made some changes to the Git2Go code for it to work with libgit2 1.5. And I integrated that into image automation controller, and now it's working like really well. Like now that happened like 5 days ago, and it's only crashed once since then. So I
it's
raised
still
the PR.
crashing. Wait.
Yeah, it crashed once. It crashed once. Yeah, it crashed once. So my working theory is that source controller has this like nice feature where we don't clone all the time. We just clone when we need to, like when you're using branches and frameworks. Image automation controller clones every reconciliation run. So like if you have an interval of 1 minute, it clones it every 1 minute. So I'm guessing something related to their memory, like how libgit2 manages memory, and then goes on for like some time, and it check faults. So like if source controller is running for 9 days, it will actually clone the repository for like 10% of the time image automation controller is actually cloning it. So that's why the image automation controller check faults much more often. But it has improved with like the new libgit2 version. It's relatively stable now. So yeah, but like I have raised the PR to the Git2Go upstream repository, but I haven't gotten any feedback. Like it's largely unnoticed. So we already have a fork, like Paolo's fork, which we use. So maybe we should consider just using that fork, or I don't know, because there is no activity on the PR I need. I'll just link that as well.
Yeah, we have that fork that Paulo did for, I don't know, 2 months now.
Yeah, that was to disable threadless libgit too, because we didn't need threading. So
Yeah, we should move it to FluxCD. So we ran away from GoGit because it's not maintained, unmaintained. We ended up with Git to Go, which is unmaintained.
we're gonna end up maintaining both of them. I have a feeling.
Damn. Yeah. I have to set up GitLab end-to-end, right? I have to set up the token.
I think you just need to make the token available to the package repository. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, sadly, that token is not set up at project level. So I'll probably generate a new one, add it to FluxCD organization, then so tomorrow. I'm
Cool.
don't have time to-
I'll be unavailable
me-
tomorrow, so I'll do
ping
it
me
next
tomorrow
week.
and I'll deal with it. I have to log in into that organization and generate a new token.
Yeah.
But
Also,
great work on testing. This is really, really awesome to see that now package has all these metrics enabled.
does anyone know how we can contact the libgit2 maintainers? Like is it possible? There is a Slack, but it's like it's a dead Slack.
I think someone from GitHub is libgit2 maintainer.
Yeah, but that person
Did
moved
we-
on to Replit. The main maintainer moved on to Replit. He left GitHub or Microsoft, whatever.
Do you know anyone, Hide?
No. There's a Slack channel that you can maybe use to at least gather some attention. But other than that, no.
Okay, well, we're at the end of our agenda. I don't want to close prematurely. If anyone has anything else to add today. But if not, we may be at the end of the meeting altogether.
Yep.
Okay. All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.